Hello, everybody. It's Sunday night, 6 p.m. on the West Coast, and I am Servet Hassan. The name of the show is Intuitive Inc., and I've got a really interesting, great show for you tonight. It's kind of a tearjerker, I think, so if you need Kleenex, go get them now. Hurry, and come back quick. But I have Lauralane on the phone tonight. We're going to be talking about her latest book, Two Mothers, One Prayer, which is a true story of facing your child's cancer with hope, strength, and courage. She did it with another mother in a different city, in a different country, actually, who was going through the same thing she was, and they helped each other. So we're going to really talk about that. But it's also, I also wanted to get into the fact that we can overcome anything, because she certainly has, and we'll talk more about that. But she's also a published children's book author, a poet, an artist, a speaker, a coach, a gallery owner, and an Indian chief, probably. So I'm sure. She's worked with some of the greats, though. She's worked with Jack Canfield, Bob Proctor. I think I read somewhere she's done the Life Success Consultant program so that she can coach Bob Proctor's teachings, and Stephen Covey, the late great Wayne Dyer. I could go on, and instead, let's just bring her on. Hi, Laura.
Hi, Servet. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. How are you?
Very good.
Good. I know you're calling from the East Coast, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm 20 minutes from Niagara Falls in Canada.
Wow. There you go. It's a beautiful part of the world. I've been there. I've been to Niagara Falls and on the Canada side, because at the time we were living in Montreal, and it was a day trip. Well, not a day trip, but I think we spent the night down there, but it was absolutely spectacular. I was probably 8 or 9 at the time, and I still remember it. It was beautiful. So anyway,
it's an unforgettable experience.
I know it is. Actually, it truly is. And when you go through life changes or life-threatening anything, you really pay attention to things like that. You know, the things that are just take your breath away. They take on a whole new meaning for some reason, which is, we'll talk about that too. But I have to say one thing. I am in California, and I cannot believe it's 82 degrees where I'm sitting right now. And it's unheard of in February. Yeah. I changed into a pair of shorts right before the show because I thought I can't sit here that long and I don't want to be undressing while we're talking. So, which is what I probably would have done. But anyway, here we are. And Laura, you have an amazing story. And I don't know where to start, because I know I hear people all the time. Everybody has tragedies and things they go through. I don't think any of us get through life without something, because it's just part of living. And also I believe it's how we grow. But you have really experienced more than your share. You've gone to hell and back. I believe you said that you lost your mom and your sister when you were barely 9 years old, right?
Yeah. So when you were 9 years old living in Montreal, my family, my mother, my sister, and I were driving through Montreal, through Quebec to the East Coast when we hit a patch of black ice and spun out of control and were hit by an oncoming transport truck. Oh. And when the car landed on the side of the road, I came to and I called out, and someone pulled me out of the car. And all I had was a little cut on my finger. I had I ended up getting 3 stitches. But my mother and my sister both were in comas. They had brain damage. They had broken bones. My sister lived for 10 days before she passed away, and my mother lived for 6 weeks before she passed away.
Oh, gosh.
And I learned a couple of really important lessons because of that accident. I learned first that death is not a punishment.
Right.
It's not a punishment to those who go, and it's not a punishment to those of us who stay behind. And I also learned that I had been protected. I really honestly feel that I had been protected in that accident. that there must have been angels watching over me, and that God had a purpose for me, that there was a reason I needed to stay, and that each one of us has a purpose to life and a different timeline. And so we sometimes make the assumption that, we're going to get 82 years, and if I don't get my 82 years, I've been cut short.
Oh, really?
But
yeah.
Everyone gets a different timeline, and it's okay. So my sister did all she needed to do in her 7 short years. My mother, it was 37 years. And later we'll talk about my daughter. So that we each have a timeline and something we needed to do. So at 9 years old, I realized, I had been protected. There was just no denying what had happened to me and how I walked away from that accident, and that God had a reason that He wanted me to stay here. So for 30 years I went, could you tell me why? Could you tell me why I'm here yet? And that's what I did, is I searched to understand what my purpose was for in life and why I was here. And I'm starting to see that now.
Well, I totally agree. First of all, I don't think there are any accidents, real accidents, even if they're accidents. I think everything happens for a reason, and I was born in Pakistan, even though I grew up in London and Montreal, and California. I'm a British citizen, a Canadian citizen, and an American citizen, and obviously Pakistani. But I know one thing they do there, because my parents have done this all their lives, is when a baby is born, they wear black. When a person passes away, they wear white. And when they marry, they wear red. But they wear white when someone passes on because they believe it's a celebration. It's definitely not anything to be sad about or to be angry about or anything like that. It's just a celebration, and you get to go home and you fulfilled what you needed to do and see ya, And that's
it's just a transition.
It's a transition to actually what they believe is a better place, you know?
Yeah.
And you've done what you needed to do. And actually, they think the highest purpose souls are the ones that miscarry or don't stay long at all, that are just here for a few minutes, because they don't need a lesson, but they needed to give somebody else a lesson, and they're gone. So it's an interesting perspective. But yes, that was happening to you about the same age I was. And then you carried on. And so obviously you've worked with such great masters that you were in search of something. Do you think you found it?
Yeah.
Good.
I feel I now see what it is that I need to do, that the lessons that I have learned. I've joked many times that if there was a lineup in heaven before we came here for an easy life, I apparently did not see it. No. And went, what's that short line up there? I'll take all the hard lessons.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yes. The go to hell and back a few times one. Yeah. That line.
But that is equipped me, I think one of the gifts of that comes from going through difficult things, that it allows us to develop more empathy for others. And it has allowed me to understand a bigger perspective on life and to be able to share that and to share. And I did have to work hard at it by finding lots of resources. And so now I love being able to share all the different resources that I've found and bits of wisdom that I've collected along the way, and all the people that I have turned to figure this out, because I couldn't do this on my own. It came with a lot of help, and so now that's what I love to do, is to share what it is that I've learned to help other people through their spots.
Right. Well, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, And do you think, Laura, that the majority of the lessons came from what you went through as a child? I'm sure that a lot came from that. Or was it what you went through with your daughter?
I had consistent lessons from the time I was 9 through my teenage years. They were not easy at all. And then in my 20s, I married and divorced and went through a very difficult time there. then my daughter was diagnosed with cancer. Mm-hmm. So it was.
It's been a long, hard road. Yes.
Yeah, 30 years. Probably about 30 years.
Wow. Now, did you have children before you had your daughter?
So I have 4 children.
Uh-huh.
I have 2 girls and 2 boys. My oldest, Desiree, just got married, and my youngest is Grayson is still home with us. He's just about to turn 14. So they range from 22 to 14.
Wow. That's amazing.
Last was my second child.
Congratulations. She's about to get married, too, so you can see her walk down the aisle and have her own children, hopefully.
So, So Desiree, my oldest, she just got married at Christmas time.
Oh, she already got married. I thought she was about to get married. Yeah. Congratulations. No. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so which daughter was it that
So my daughter Celeste, she's my second daughter, my second child. And when she was in 2011, when she was 12 years old, she had these terrible, it was this time, this time of year, 8 years ago, and or 7 years ago, and she started developing these really bad headaches, like headaches that woke her up in the middle of the night, if you can imagine what that would feel like, to have headaches that wake you up. I personally cannot imagine it.
No.
And so she was complaining of these terrible, terrible headaches, and then all of a sudden she developed double vision. And fortunately for us, her stepmother is a neurologist, and knew immediately that, or she was in school. She was doing her internship at that point in neurology, and now she's become a full-blown neurologist. She noticed that, okay, there's something really wrong if she has double vision. So she took her over to the doctor's that morning, and that quick little doctor's visit, he immediately sent them to the emergency. By 2 in the afternoon, Celeste had a CAT scan. By dinner time, she had an MRI, and by 9:30 at night, she was in emergency neurosurgery.
Wow.
She was having brain surgery, so they could relieve the pressure that was building up in her brain, and to see if they could get a biopsy of the tumor that was growing there.
Unbelievable. And you weren't even there then, so you had to rush to that hospital. Which wasn't
so I
close.
got the call to say we're at the hospital and get here right away.
Right.
And we raced over and.
Right, because I read your book, Two Mothers, One Prayer, and it wasn't a short drive either. It was
2 hours away from where I was.
Which I can't even imagine that, even, knowing your child is about to go in for brain surgery and then trying to get there. I don't know if I could. I wonder how people handle things, but then I've gone through things as well, and I know that when you're faced with it, you just do it. You go into a different mode, I think. Is that what happened to you? Did you experience that?
I turn into that mode, okay, what needs to be done? Who do I need to call? Just very proactive. And it was interesting, the setup that had happened at that time. My husband and I had been gifted an overnight at a hotel in the Falls. And we wanted to take this little mini vacation for ourselves. And the older children were at their father's house. And our youngest, we couldn't find childcare for him, for someone to take him overnight. Couldn't find a friend's house for him to go through, nothing. And so we thought, okay, well, we'll just take him with us to the hotel, and during the day we'll take him to school because it's not too far, and we'll spend our time together. In the evenings we'll have it with our son. Well, we go to pick him up from school the one day, and that's when we get the phone call that Celeste is in the hospital. You got to come right away. Our bags were already packed.
Yeah.
All we had to do was go back over to the hotel, say, I'm sorry, we have to check out early, grab our stuff, and on the road.
Yep. There you go. It was all set. You just put the bags in the car and went, right?
Yeah. And then it just meant arranging somewhere for my husband and youngest son to stay while I stayed at the hospital with Celeste. And luckily I had friends there who said, sure, come on over. And they were able to stay the night, and I stayed in Celeste's hospital room.
Yes. How long was she there?
We spent, I believe it was 2 nights at the hospital in London, and then they transferred us to Sick Kids in Toronto, because when they did her surgery, they weren't able to get a biopsy because her brain tumor is underneath the pineal gland, which is at the base of the brain, at the top of the spinal cord, and very difficult spot to be able to get at. And so that neurosurgeon was not able to do it. So they said, we want to send you to Toronto, where the best neurosurgeon in the country works at Sick Kids, Dr. Drake. And he then did another surgery a week later. But they sent us to Sick Kids, and we stayed there until that surgery was done. Then we had to wait another week for the biopsy results. So we spent a couple of weeks in hospital. Then she had a couple of weeks off before they started her radiation treatments. They came up with a schedule for St. Jude's.
Did they get the tumor?
So, because the tumor is such a terrible spot to get at, they could only get a sample of it. So he was able to get a sample to do a biopsy, but it's not a tumor that they could simply cut out. Yeah. Because of where it was. It's such a hard to difficult place to reach. And so it then meant she needed to do 30 rounds of high-dose radiation, followed by 4 to 6 months of high-dose chemotherapy and stem cell rescue, which meant she was going to be in hospital. They estimated anywhere from 4 to 6 months after she had done the day radiation treatments. And so after her treatments had done, her tumor had shrunk 98.5%.
Wow.
And we were absolutely thrilled. So in this process, Celeste gets diagnosed, and at first I go into this, okay, I don't want to be afraid. I just need to, taking all the training I had just done with Bob Proctor, everything that he had taught me about, okay, fear is the absence of knowledge. So when we're afraid, one of the things that we can do is arm ourselves with knowledge. So I'm like, okay, if I'm afraid of something, then what don't I know? Okay, then I need to arm myself with what are we going to be doing? What are all the things that we can be doing? And but the one thing I didn't want to do is I didn't want to go onto the internet and bombard myself with information and scare myself.
Right.
Hearing all about this type of tumor. It's extremely rare. The chance of getting it is 1 in 7 million.
Wow. What is there a name for it? Was there a fact?
It's called pineoblastoma because it's at the pineal gland in the brain.
1 in 7 million. Wow.
Yeah. And so I didn't want to go online and scare myself by looking at all I didn't want to hear horror stories. I thought I'll just trust what the doctors are telling us, and we're going to go from there. Well, a couple of months later, when Celeste was in the middle of her radiation, I got this feeling that I needed to go online and look. And I'm like, no, I don't want to. And I get this feeling again. Go online, Laura, and look and see what it says. So I finally do. I pull up my computer, I Google it, and I pull up a website, this mom whose son had pineoblastoma. And she had created this website explaining all about it and then listing all of the children she's ever found, because there's so few of them. She made a list of all the children that she's ever discovered that have ever had this tumor. And I'm looking through this list. There's a 16-year-old boy diagnosed in 1986 and a 3-year-old diagnosed in 1990, and I'm going through this list. And then there's this 12-year-old girl diagnosed in February 2011. I'm like, but Celeste is 12 years old, and she was diagnosed in February 2011. There was another family going through this at the exact same time as us. And their daughter was the same age as my daughter.
Wow. No accidents, I'm telling you. So you
I found them. I found this other family. The woman on the website happened to put the care pages, so a page that this family was using to update their family and friends about how Haley was doing. So I reached out to them via this website and said, my daughter has the same tumor as your daughter. It was diagnosed at the same time. Like, oh my goodness, we've never met anyone else. And so we were just thrilled. Haley is the other little girl, and her mom, I'm Laura. Haley's mom's name is Lori.
Lori.
And we were like, we just couldn't believe it, that all of these things, and like, this is not a coincidence. I calculated out later on the chances of both girls being diagnosed at the same time, being the same age, both being girls, 23.5 billion to 1.
Yeah.
Are the odds.
I'm not surprised. No, I'm not even blinking because I'm sure that's the case, you know? So did you meet her?
Yeah. So we spent months where we called, we emailed back and forth. The girls were able to Skype with each other from their hospital rooms. It was so cute seeing them. They were sharing, both showing off their scars from their incisions, from their surgeries, and talking about this complaint and that complaint. They were like two little old ladies comparing their war wounds. Well, it was so cute. And it was wonderful for them because nobody else that they knew understood what they were going through.
Right. And
so their friends at school didn't get it.
Yeah, they're not going to. Even adults, because unless you're going through it yourself, you can't really. It's like having a baby. You don't know what it's like till you do it, actually, and it's different for everybody. You know, it's not the same for everyone. So anyway, they got to talk, right, all the time.
Yep. So, and it was wonderful for Lori and I to have someone to, whenever I was having a bad day, Lori would cheer me up. If she was having a bad day, I would cheer her up. We sent these emails back and forth. And that actually became the second part of my book.
Right.
Was sharing those emails going back and forth. So you see the development of our relationship from going from being complete strangers to best friends.
Right.
Being each other's lifeline as the girls were going through this. As the girls went through the treatments, Haley was 1 month ahead of Celeste in her schedule. And they end up both being discharged from hospital 3 days apart. So Haley did 4 rounds of the chemo, and Celeste ended up doing 3 rounds before they end up saying, okay, you're done. And both girls got to go home. They had home study, the teachers coming in to help them as they got better. They had to learn how to walk again, all kinds of growth. But by this was September, the end of September, they left the hospital, and both girls were back in school for January.
What?
Which was just
really?
Amazing.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. Wow. I wouldn't, because they're learning everything again. Motor skills, everything.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Did you two get to meet? Did they meet in person?
So after the girls went back to school, that next June, Haley and Lori flew up to Toronto, and we were able to spend a weekend together to finally meet in person. And so we have a picture on the cover of the book of the two girls together, and that picture was taken at the CN Tower in Toronto when they came up. And it was a wonderful weekend together. And we just love each other so much.
Are you still in touch? Do you still?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yep. So Lori and I still text with each other. I went down to see her in her home, and she's now in Florida. And I went to see her last year, and we text each other every month, and we're still quite close. It's been wonderful to have this friendship with each other. It's been incredible. So
how long were you in touch with each other? Did the treatment end there, or did Celeste have to go through another round of chemo again? Or, I mean, I know the answers to these because they're in the book, but I just want people out there to hear it.
So both girls went back to school. So Haley had her no evidence of disease. Celeste's tumor had shrunk 98.5%, and we were looking that on the next MRI, and this is the summer of 2012, we were expecting, okay, our next MRI, Haley has her no evidence of disease, Celeste is going to have her no evidence of disease. They call it an NED. And that's what we were praying for and focusing on. And so then when the doctor called me up and said, we found some spots, some new spots on Celeste's MRI. And I'm like, no. That's not what we're supposed to get. You're supposed to tell me it's all gone. It was 98.5% gone. Like, we only had a 1.5% to go. You're just supposed to tell me it's gone. And so then she said, we don't have any other options. We don't have any other treatment options. We'll just have to see what happens. And I went into fear that no. This is not supposed to come back. This is not going to get worse. And I went into a real panic for a couple of days. And as I was going through that panic, all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, well, then that means we just need to do more. We'll just, if they're not going to offer us a treatment here in Canada, then we'll go to Mexico, we'll go to Europe, wherever we have to go to find another treatment. We'll just find something else that's going to work. And then all of a sudden, I had this feeling. And I realized as much as I was willing to do anything in the whole world for my little girl, this wasn't my fight.
Right.
This was up to Celeste on whether she felt like she could fight this anymore, because this was really tough. And we'd watched her go through hell during those treatments. It was so hard to watch her suffer through all of that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I realized that if she felt like she could fight this, then we would fight this. But if she felt like she couldn't do this anymore, it was too hard. And that was okay, too. We would just make every day that she had left with us wonderful, whether that was 3 months or 3 years or whatever it is. So, but it had to be up to Celeste on what she wanted to do. And when I finally gave into that no matter what happened, it was going to be okay. When I surrendered, that's when I finally got peace. And I had to have that conversation with Celeste and say, Celeste, this is what the doctors have said. And if you want to fight this, we'll fight this. But if you feel like you can't do this anymore, sweetie, that's okay too. She's like, no, Mommy, I want to fight this. No, we can do this. I'm like, that's my little girl, of course.
Oh, good.
But the doctors didn't arm us with anything to do immediately. And her father wasn't on board either. And so it was just like, okay, well, we'll just start with what we were doing before, prayers and energy work and things like that, and then we'll figure out what the next step is. But we had no idea how quickly these tumors grow. So that by the middle of the fall, she was now saying her legs hurt. By Christmas time, she was getting headaches again. And we had gone to a camp, an overnight camp through the church, a youth group camp. And while she was there, then the headaches came back and the double vision. And we're like, so we called the hospital, and they said, please come right away. And we had to drive 2 hours to get her to the hospital. But while we were driving, all the youth at that camp all got together and prayed. By the time we got to the hospital, the double vision was gone and the headache was gone. And so the doctor said, well, they insisted that because she hadn't eaten much that day, as long as you eat something, then we'll let you go home. She was supposed to have a vacation with her father, going to see grandparents and uncles and cousins. Do that. Once you come back from your vacation, then we'll do another MRI. So she had a wonderful vacation. We came back and we had the MRI. And the day of the MRI, we went in, did the MRI, and her stepmother, being a neurologist, stayed with the technician. And then I took Celeste up to the bone scan that they wanted to do. And we're in this room, and she's laying out on this type of bed, this machine with a bed on it. Mm-hmm. And it's freezing cold in the room. So she's got these warm blankets on her. It's so cold they've given me blankets to wrap up in. I'm wrapped up in these blankets, and we have to wait, because the only thing you ever do at a hospital is wait. Everything is wait for this, wait for that.
Right.
So we're waiting for the technicians. And Michelle sends me a text, and she says, it doesn't look good. But I don't know what it doesn't look like means. I just know she's saying it doesn't look good.
Michelle's the stepmother, right?
Yeah, Michelle is her stepmother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I said to Celeste, I had a notebook there, and I said, sweetie, if you could do anything in the whole world, what would you want to do? If you could go anywhere, if you could meet anyone, if you could do anything, what would you want to do? She said, oh, Mommy, she said, I'd love to go to Europe. She said, I want to go to Big Ben in London, and I want to go to the Eiffel Tower in Paris, and I want to go to the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy. And she says, I want to have Swiss chocolate in Switzerland, and she want to have chocolate, a pain au chocolat in Paris, and she's listing all these things, and I'm writing it down. And I said, what else? And she's like, oh, and I want Haley to come with us and her family. And so I'm writing it all down. I said, okay. I said, if you could meet anyone in the whole world, who would you want to meet? And she goes, oh, Robin Williams. I wrote it down. I said, well, who else? She said, Celine Dion. So I wrote that down, and then I'm like, anyone else? She said, Anne Hathaway. We had just seen Les Mis.
Oh,
and
wow.
we loved Anne Hathaway in Ella Enchanted and Princess Bride, and so Celeste really loved Anne. And so I wrote that down, and then we're huge Doctor Who fans. Like really big Whovians, and so she's like, and the cast of the Doctor Who TV show, I want to meet the Doctor. So writing all this down, I said, okay, if you could do anything, like you want to learn anything new, she said, I want to go rock climbing, Mommy, and I want to learn how to make the Nanaimo bars, and I want to try new foods, and so I'm writing this big long list, and then they do the scan, and then we go downstairs to meet with the doctors, and then that's when the doctors broke the news to us. They said, Celeste has so much cancer in her little body, we only expect her to live days or weeks. And I'm like, what do you mean days? I only have days with my daughter.
I know. I can't.
And they said, yeah, we don't expect her to live a month. But we had already made our decision on what we were going to do. And now we knew what Celeste wanted. And the doctor said she couldn't fly, so the whole trip to Europe was out. They said, no, not with a brain tumor. You can't do that. The pressure changed the cabins.
Right.
That would be too painful. So we said, okay, then if that's not possible. I sent a message out on Facebook and by email to everyone that we know. And said, this is the deal. Celeste doesn't have much time left. She would love, these are the people she would love to meet. So if you know anyone in the music industry, in the TV industry, in the music, movies, and TV industries, if you know anyone who knows anyone who knows anyone,
right,
please help us. This is what we want to do for our little girl. We don't know how much time she has left. And this was on a Friday. We left the hospital. We took her to the Mandarin Chinese food restaurant buffet, and she tried all these new foods she'd never tried before. And then on Wednesday, we were at her dad's house, and we get a phone call. So we're in the kitchen, and her stepmom answers the phone, and this man calls asking for Celeste. She's like, can I ask who's calling? There's a stranger that's calling for our daughter.
Right, exactly.
And he says David Tennant, and he's got a Scottish accent. And she's like, oh my goodness, it is. Like, just all of a sudden realize, here's this man calling from England to talk to Celeste. He was one of our favorite doctor in the Doctor Who TV show. And so she gives the phone to Celeste, and Celeste is sitting at the kitchen table talking to David Tennant like she does this every day of her life. She's talking about spaghetti bolognese and her favorite this and her favorite that and having this incredible conversation and cool as a cat. And the rest of us got on the extension in the hallway and we're jumping up and down. Oh my goodness, Dad is on the phone! We couldn't believe it. And she was just so cool about it all. Like, yeah, I just do this every day of my life. Well, that was Wednesday. On Thursday, someone got hold of Robin Williams. He was on tour. And he Skyped with her from his hotel room while he was on tour.
Oh.
And talked with her for 15 minutes.
Oh, nice.
And when he did that, he said, I'd like to have another call with you when I get home. So when I get back to my place in California, I'd like to call you from there so you can see the view from the ocean. And I want to introduce you to my cat and my dog. I think the dog's name is Oscar, but is what I can remember right now. Mm-hmm. And he started barking like a seal from us because he has seals that go by his window. He wanted to make sure that she saw the seals. I'm like, we really honestly have Robin Williams on the phone.
Right.
And it was totally awesome. Then the next day, Celine Dion called from Vegas.
Wow.
Someone had gone to Vegas, knocked on her manager's door or something, and she called from Vegas and dedicated that evening's performance to Celeste.
Oh,
they talked for about 15 minutes, and
she
was so lovely and told her she loved her and how brave she was, and it was incredible.
What a week.
And then on Saturday, Anne Hathaway Skyped with Celeste.
Oh.
They talked for 45 minutes. And said, I consider this an introduction, and you're my new best friend. They had so many things in common. It was awesome. Celeste told Annie about how Granddad does soup parties, and he was going to put on a soup party for her. And she was just enthralled hearing about the soup party, and she's like, I'm going to do that. So if you hear that they're having soup parties in either L.A. or New York City, because Annie's got a place in both, house in both places, if they're having soup parties, you know where the idea came from.
Right.
She got that idea from Celeste.
Oh, my. Oh.
And after that, somebody got hold of Jim Carrey because his sister works not too far from where we live. And someone got hold of Jim Carrey's sister, and Jim Carrey sent Celeste a box set of DVDs that were signed. All of his funny movies for her to watch.
Oh, nice.
Robin Williams called back a second time, and they had their call from when he was at his home near San Francisco, and he showed her the view of the ocean. Annie called back a second time as well, and they had a wonderful chat. Karen Gillan, who was most recently in Jumanji and Guardians of the Galaxy, she was from the Doctor Who TV show. She sent Celeste a video message of her jumping up and down on her bed and saying hi to Celeste and wishing her well. And then just a couple of weeks after that, Matt Smith called from London, England. Friends of ours who had connections with a Comic-Con in Niagara Falls got hold of connections that they had at the BBC in London, England, who then got hold of Matt Smith, and he called and spoke to her as well for about 15 minutes. It was wonderful.
Wow.
And it was on a day when she was feeling so low. And it was a real boost to her for him to call.
Wow. Well, okay, we're running out of time here, so I gotta...
Sorry.
No, I can't. You know, your book is the same way, because when I started reading it, it's like I knew what happened, but you can't stop reading it, too. Do you know what I mean? It's like you get enthralled with the whole thing and how special she was, and then the emails between you and Lori, and it just is. You learn so much about life in general from these children. It's unbelievable. It's like, and you know what happens, yet it changes. You can't stop. It's like, because I did want to open the lines though, in case anybody had a question for you. 949-313-8880. We're kind of running out of time, but a quick question: if anyone has a challenge that's similar or has a question for Lauralane, call in now because we are running out of time. But and the book is lovely. Now, where can people buy it if they want it to hear the rest of this story? The stories.
It's available at Barnes & Noble. It's available at Amazon. Here in Canada, it's available at Chapters, all online. It's published through it's through the Ingram distributor, so it's available on all the. You can get it both as an ebook or a paperback. So
right, and it's called Two Mothers, One Prayer. Facing Your Child's Cancer with Hope, Strength, and Courage. And did the two of you write it together? Both of your names are on the cover of the book, but did you collaborate on the actual writing of the book as well?
So, for the most part, it was the cathartic way for me to heal after Celeste passed away. And Lori was still in the midst of taking care of Haley. So we worked together with my editor to help Lori with her portion. So the chapters about Haley are written from Lori's voice, and then we have all of the emails that went back and forth. So that was part of Lori's contribution to the book, was her half of all the emails.
Right.
And so I felt that it was important to acknowledge Lori as co-contributor in this work.
Yeah. Celeste put up a hell of a fight, you know, and then, and like you said, everybody's on their path. Where, when you went to work, you started working with Bob Proctor and all of these other amazing, people, I want to say self-help gurus almost.
Yeah.
That,
experts,
yeah, they are experts in their field. There's so many of them that what did you start doing that before she got sick?
Yeah, so in 2007, I went and took a program with Jack Canfield in 2007. It's called Breakthrough to Success, and it was incredible, and that's what started me on my path of what I wanted to be doing. And then I was reading one of Bob Proctor's books and felt like I needed to go to one of his workshops. And then I then learned his training and started teaching his programs. After I had met Lori virtually online, I got and the girls were going through their treatments, I got an impression one day that I needed to write this book. And all of a sudden came to me like, I need to tell the world about these two little girls. They are incredible.
Right. They are.
But I'd never written a book before, or at least not a book like this. I then went on that summer to publish my first children's book, but I'd never written a nonfiction book before.
Right.
And so then I started seeking out, well, who can I learn from to write a book? And so then I did a training with Marcy Shimoff, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Women's Soul, Happy for No Reason, and Love for No Reason. They're all #1 New York Times best-selling books. And as well as Chris and Janet Atwood, who wrote the best-selling book, The Passion Test, and then Your Hidden Riches. So they were offering a program to help people to write best-selling books. And I thought, well, then that's who I want to work with. So I did a program with them, met Janet Atwood, and was so impressed by her, and she invited me to become one of her passion test facilitators. So then I started teaching taking people through the passion test process as part of the coaching I was doing with my clients, and loved it. And then when I went to write I needed a foreword for my book, and I could have asked any of these wonderful people to do, any of my wonderful mentors, if they would write the foreword. And the impression I got was a man I had met, another author. His name is Kevin Hall, and he wrote a book called Aspire, Understanding the Power of Words. And his daughter had a brain tumor the same year as my daughter. Now, his daughter was in her 30s, and she had children, but still he understood the worry, all the emotions that come up, and I said, would you write the foreword? And so Kevin has now one of my mentors as well, so he wrote the foreword for the book. And then since then, I've worked with Steve Siebold, who is one of the top speakers in the world, professional speakers, I spent a year studying with him, and now I'm currently apprenticed to Tom Stoyan, Canada's sales coach. He's the founder of the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. And so I've been just really blessed to have these wonderful mentors step into my path right when I needed them.
Yep, that's how it works. You ask and ye shall receive, and there it came. So, and the book is lovely. And like I said to everybody out there, it's Two Mothers, One Prayer. And also, you have a website too. It's lauralane.ca, correct?
Yes.
Right.
There is a website for the book, which is twomothersOnePrayer.com as well, which if you click on that, there is a link to order the book. It'll take you through to Amazon as well.
Okay, so now when you get out there and you speak and you talk and you're continuing to grow and all these things that you're working on now, what do you continue to speak about your lessons from what's happened with Celeste and all of this, or are you on a different level?
No, that's exactly what I've been speaking this last year, going around to different women's institutes and BPW meetings and other places to talk about what do we do when we come across difficult life circumstances, when we come across these current things in our life that brings us to our knees. How do we cope? So there are 5 lessons that I was able to sort of distill from my experience with Celeste and the other things in my life, that we need to reach out, we need to connect, we need to take time to reflect through the things we're going through, express all the emotions that are coming up, and most importantly, love. And so I talk about all of those things. I tell Celeste and Haley's story and share the keys to coping, but coping so that we're facing what we're coming up with: hope, strength, and courage.
Hope, strength, and courage. Correct. Right. Exactly. Because that's what what it's all about in the end. Life is full of transitions. Actually, that's the name of my last book, Life in Transition. So for Llewellyn, for Worldwide Publishers. But I think, but part of that is that it's highly unlikely that you're going to be able to escape that. I think all of our souls are here to learn and grow, to evolve. And part of that is going to be dealing with difficult circumstances. And in order to shift and grow and move to the next level consciously, we have to evolve.
Yeah. It's a refining process.
Yeah,
right?
It's almost letting go of things that instead of learning something new, it's really about uncovering what's already there. I think it's one of the keys, and also you talked about fear, and that's what stops most of us. I think the coach at UCLA used to call fear false evidence appearing real. And you said Bob Proctor says it's the absence of knowledge. It's all of that. And that's what gets us, most of us humans in a state, is we go into fear. So I'm sure you talk about that when you're out there a lot.
Yes.
Is moving past fear. Do you have any good tips for people that are in a horrible situation right now, maybe not dealing with a child but just fear in general?
I think that one piece of advice that I got from Bob, that it is it's the lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
Ask the question, what is it that I don't know? And then once you figure out, or what is it that I'm afraid of, is usually turns around to, what is it that I don't know? So then, now seek out the answer for that.
Right.
And use the resources that are around you. And that means you're going to have to reach out and ask for help. And it's okay to ask. And what I discovered is people people want to help. They just need to know what it is that you need. So I had to learn to ask. So we did that with Celeste. There's no way I could have gotten hold of Robin Williams, Celine Dion, Anne Hathaway, Matt Smith, David Tennant. I couldn't have done that on my own.
No, and look what happened.
I asked for help, and people wanted the help, and they went out of their way, and people are incredible. People want to help you if you will let them. But you have to be brave enough to ask and say, this is what I'm going through right now. This is what I need. One day, I put a message out on Facebook. We were at the hospital. We'd been there for months. And Celeste was so sick. And I hadn't eaten all day because I couldn't leave her side.
Right.
And so I put a message up on Facebook, somebody, I need some food. And a friend raced, got me food, and showed up. I had another friend another time showed up and said, here, give me your laundry. And they took my laundry for me. Another time, Celeste desperately, when she would eat something, we were like, okay, what do you want?
Right.
Because it was so rare. Right. And she wanted Mommy's peanut butter and jam sandwich. And I'm like, Celeste wants my peanut butter and jam sandwiches, but it has to be Mommy's, not the hospital ones.
Right.
And I'm like, I need this type of bread, this brand. I need this type of peanut butter. I need this type of jam. And then a friend going, yep, okay, I'll go get that. And they showed up at the hospital with all the ingredients that we needed.
Yep.
People are incredible. They will do whatever they can to help if you just let them know what way they can be there for you.
Right. I think you have to ask. And I think when you put it out there. The other thing I loved that you did, Laura, I loved that you asked her and you took a note about what does she want, you know? Even if you can't get to Europe, she made a pretty damn good bucket list, you know? She just went through, but you know, that's something we should all do all the time anyway, you know? Yeah. That's a good lesson right there, is that, and then if you set your mind to it, you could probably do most of the things on that list if you want to, you know?
I actually learned that from Jack Canfield. Before I even studied with him, I had a book that I have one of Jack's books, and it's not one that's well known. It's called The Aladdin Factor, and it's all about learning to ask, and he has an activity. It's called a list of 101. And you create a list of 101 things you'd like to do, be, have, places you want to go, people you want to meet, things you want to learn. And it has to be 101. And I do this with my clients all the time. It's the only way I will take on a new client is they have to be able to do this assignment. And if you get to 70 and it gets really hard, you have to push on and keep going until you hit 101. But it gives you an opportunity to get to the meat of what's really important to you.
Right. Well,
and I've been doing that exercise for almost 20 years now.
Good. And you know what? Because we shouldn't have to wait until we don't know how much time we have. You know, this is something you should do because it's true. If you just do that long enough, you'll have to get down to the nitty gritty. Like, what do you really, really want? You know, and I ask clients that too. They'll say, what do you want? And they tell me, and I say, okay, now what do you really want? And then they tell me, and then I go, well, what do you really, really want? Because I annoy the crap out of them, but that's because, you know, it takes that to get to the real answer. And you do it with 101, and I remember that book, The Aladdin Factor. Yeah. I do, actually. So, I mean, and so you've learned you have a tremendous amount of knowledge yourself, and you're getting out there and you're changing people's lives with it, which is probably exactly what Celeste wanted you to do. Yeah.
And I believe that's the reason I went through that accident when I was a little girl, was to let me know there's something you need to do.
Well, yeah, you needed to have Celeste. And you needed to have all these other lessons that brought you where you are that can help millions of people, you know? Yeah. That's awesome. That's a lovely way to end the show. I could just talk to you for another 3 hours, but that's it. The show is the next show will air on top of us, so we have to go. But I do love your book, 2 mothers, 1 prayer. And the website is Laura Lane, and it's just like it sounds. It's LauraLane.ca, not .com, .ca. Be aware of that because people just automatically type in com. So .ca because you're in Canada. And you can find out, and you take clients. So if they want to reach out to you, they can. Because I know we didn't have any callers tonight. First of all, I didn't open up the lines long enough. But also, it's a difficult subject. So I'm not surprised. But I'm sure I will hear from people, and you will too. And if I do, I'll forward them on to you because people, after they think about it, will have many questions, I'm sure. Right.
Well, I would love to be available to anyone who might like to chat.
I am really delighted you were on the show. It was lovely meeting you. I know you're here for a good reason, and I'm glad I met you, and I know you're going to change the world.
Thank you so much, Servet. It's been wonderful. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Get out there and do it, girl. Okay?
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wow, she's got a million life lessons there that we could have gone on and on about, but just hearing the story of Celeste and everything else is just so amazing to me, and she's just a remarkable woman who's got this great girl power going, and she's going to change the world. I just know she is. We didn't have callers call in, but you can. Reach out to me separately if you want to, or to Laura at her website, lauralane.ca, or I am at Servet at servethassan.com. It's ServetHassan.com. That's also my website, servethassan.com. And like I said, you could email me that Servet at servethassan.com too. And if you go to my website, you'll see my private consultations that I'm available for. I really specialize in book coaching and getting people unstuck if they have a book in them. I've got a new blog coming out and podcasts and online lessons and seminars and things like that are all going to start soon. It takes time, but we're getting there. I went through a really rough time last year, as many of you know, which is how I met Laura Lane, because I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer last year. And so, you know, I went through chemotherapy and all of that stuff. So we'll be talking about that. We'll also be bringing up the ways to get past all of that, because we did, or I did. And so we're going to get into some really positive energy and how to help yourself heal and all those kinds of things as well. And it's all good. We've got great shows coming up, not next week because it's Super Bowl Sunday, so we're going to let it ride, and we'll start up in February. I think February 12th will be the next show. I have a doctor on the show. I don't have her name in front of me right now. She's written a book. She's excellent. It's a new way of healing, and it's not about cancer, but it's just in general. And she's awesome. We'll have her on the show February 12th after Super Bowl Sunday. I will take a little break, and then I will see you then. In the meantime, be you to the full, because that is what truly is beautiful. And that, in the end, is the message. So, and don't wait. If you have a bucket list, be you to the full. Go do it. It's your life to live the way you choose and the way you want to. And you don't know, even if you haven't been diagnosed with anything, you don't know how long you have. So be you to the full. We all have an expiration date. And I'll just keep saying it till you do it, because honestly, it's true. We do. We don't always know what that is, and sometimes we do know what that is. And either way, make the most of it and live your life to the fullest and be you to the full. And I love you all, and thank you for joining me today, and we'll be back soon. Good night.